this week's episode of Making and Musing, I've made progress on a knitted sock, I've finished a quilt square, and I'm nearly done with a knitted top. So stick around to see the knitting projects that I've been working on this week. Hey fiber friends, my name is Harriet. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you for joining us. And if you're already subscribed, thank you so much for coming back. I've been trying to build a small community here on this channel, and I'm really excited with the extent to which it seems to be gaining a little bit of traction. We're almost up to 100 subscribers, which is a little goal that I sort of set for myself, an early goal. I originally had 0 subscribers, so that's why 100 feels like a lot to me. And so if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Okay, so this week, today is Saturday, March 22nd, and if you're like me, you probably can't believe how quickly the year seems to be flying by, right? The weather's already warming up, not that I'm complaining. And so I've been working on continuing a couple of projects that I started a few weeks ago. And so I will start with the project that has a little bit of a finish to it, and that is my Stella quilt square. Okay, so I talked about this in last week's episode. Basically, I want to make a Stella quilt cushion, actually several of them, for a new daybed that I have. So I finished the front of the first one this week, and so I will show that to you right now. So I hope you can see that. Hope it's showing up on camera. Okay, so I'm using a combination of different yarns from Knit Picks. So this is a wool and acrylic blend. And so the gray that I'm using as the main color is a Swish DK, and I think the color is Marble Heather. And then this, the colors are Heatherly Worsted by Knit Picks. And so one of the things that I did discover is that for the squares where I'm using the Swish DK, I'm having to use a US 7 needle. And then for the squares, right, so like these here, where there's a combination of a gray triangle sort of with a color, since these are sort of two slightly different weights of yarn, I'm having to go up a needle size and use, or no, wait a minute, am I going down a needle size? No, I'm going, okay, yes. I did write it down on my Ravelry page for this project because I knew I was never going to remember. So I am using a US 7 for the colored squares, which are in the Heatherly Worsted. Okay. So these squares. And then I'm using a US 8 for the squares of Swish DK. And just to make sure that the gauge stays relatively consistent across it, right? I'm not hugely worried about gauge as long as each square is roughly the same size. But yeah, I think it turned out really well. So my plan is to make the fronts, so the fun part, right? The part with the different triangles for at least 3 of these cushions, and then for the backs of them, I'm envisioning using creating the option that Laura Penrose Pattern offers, where you can, kind of create like you can use an insert to put in, right? So I'm not going to just seal these shut with stuffing in them because I have cats and things spill and I spill things. And so I want to have the option to wash them. That's also why I opted to use a yarn that's an acrylic blend. Okay, then the other project that I've been working on for a few weeks now, right? I kind of spontaneously cast it on, even though I have other cast-ons that kind of, other works in progress really that require my attention. I'll get to them, I promise. I really was compelled to cast on Caitlin Hunter's Miserina, and so I've been working on that, and it's coming along really nicely, so I will show it to you right now. Okay, that's actually the back of it. This is the front. Yeah, the only difference, or the reason that I know that, is that the back is a little bit higher because it has short row shaping. And as I mentioned, this pattern comes with the option to do the body and the sleeves using an eyelet pattern or a pearl dot pattern. And so I have used the pearl dot pattern, and so that's what's creating that texture on the body. Right, sort of almost like a waffle effect on the body. And as I've said before, this pattern kind of has it all going on. So you've got a textured body, you've also got lace work, you've got the color work in the yoke. And so this week I have added the sleeves. Right. And so those sleeves are roughly about 2 inches. I have not blocked this sweater at all because I've just been working on it, but I decided to take a little break from going around and around on the body and get the sleeves done. So now I'm in good shape, because once I finish the body, then it will be finished, right? So I'm at the point where, yeah, I just have to keep going on the body, and the pattern for the body actually works really well for, TV watching, out and about kind of knitting. So yeah, it's just a question of continuing on knitting, fingering weight, and eventually getting to the ribbing. As I mentioned, I think last week when I first started talking about this, the original pattern calls for a cropped design. I'm making mine quite a bit longer, so I think that the pattern suggests that, you make the body 7 inches from the underarm. That's just way too short for me, right? I envision wearing this as something that I'd like to be able to wear with jeans and, not necessarily just have to wear over a dress. So I'm making it quite a bit longer. So I think that my plan is to make the body itself about 12 or 13 inches from the underarm, and then add an inch or so of some ribbing on it. I have to kind of think through what I want to do with the ribbing on the base of it, because it just tells you to sort of add an inch of ribbing. I don't know about others out there, and if this has happened to you, feel free to drop it in the comments, but more than once with a lot of top down and in the round patterns where there's only a short ribbing on the bottom, I find that ribbing flips up, particularly if the pattern doesn't stipulate that you make some decreases around it. And so, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think the Miserina suggests making decreases, like decreasing the number of stitches before you move into the ribbing. So that's why I kind of want to think that through a little bit when I get to that point, because I don't know about you, but there is nothing, well, okay, there's probably some things, but in the knitting world, one of the things that annoys me most is when the ribbing on the sweater flips up. Oh, that drives me. Just thinking about it makes me a little nuts. So I want to make sure that I, sort of like prepare for that. So my progress this week was to put the sleeves on and to do several inches of the body. And I'm really feeling like I can get this done definitely before the end of the month. And hopefully maybe even by the podcast episode next week, right? That's sort of my ultimate goal. So we'll see. The next thing that I have to show for this week is something that I started a couple of weeks ago, then took a little break on, but have since returned to because, again, it's sort of been good for TV watching, and also just because I love the color of it. And so I am making Summer Lee's Mermaid Avenue socks, and if you haven't watched Summer Lee's channel, she actually has an episode of her podcast where she talks about the Mermaid Avenue socks and and so that was what inspired me to take this skein of yarn that I have and make these socks. So without further ado, here they are. Okay. And the camera's blowing it out a little bit. I think the color is a little bit more like a kind of it's got some gold spots in it, but it's more of a, yeah, sort of almost like a buttery yellow. And so I have finished the foot, or finished the leg rather, so the cuff and the leg, and I started last night to construct the heel flap. Yeah, so there's not a lot to say about this pattern, right? The design itself, right, the stitch pattern that you use that gives you that nice little kind of scale effect on the socks is really easy and memorizable, and yeah, it helps the sock kind of just work up really, really quickly. The color is Where the Sun Don't Shine. I'll put a link to my Ravelry page down below, and all the information about the yarn that I'm using is there. Right? And the needles that I'm using are US 1. So my goal for this, I'm hoping by next week's podcast to have the first sock done and to be about to embark on the second sock. It would be lovely if I could have this pair of socks done by the end of the month of March, but I don't know. That might be asking a bit much. It's kind of hard for me to gauge. Like for the last couple of weeks, I've been traveling quite a bit on weekends and busy during the week getting ready to doing the traveling stuff. And I don't foresee having any of that happening over the next week or so, which might mean I have a little bit more time to kind of buckle down and get a little bit further on finishing the Misurina and getting this sock set done. Okay, and the last thing that I want to talk about today is the sweater that I'm wearing, actually, because it's kind of a fun little mashup. And it's one of my favorite sweaters, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about it in case, you know, if you're somebody who's nervous about experimenting with patterns and yarn the way I am, then this is a little story that might kind of help you feel more motivated to do that kind of thing. Okay, so let me just stand up and show you this sweater, right, and the pattern on the front of it. Okay. So this is a mashup pattern, actually. So the cable pattern that I chose is actually from a free pattern called the Must Have Cardigan, and I have actually made the Must Have Cardigan as well. It's a free pattern by Patons, or is it Patons? I never know how to pronounce that. But it's called the Must Have Cardigan. And I really do love it as a pattern. I found it from following the yarn harlot Stephanie Pearl McPhee's blog. So having made the cardigan and really enjoying that process, I kind of wanted to make a long sleeve sweater that, that incorporated that cabling work. So I decided to do that by taking a pattern called the unisex cable pullover that actually used different cable work, but that I had also made before that created a kind of sweater that I really liked. So I liked the sizing of that pattern, and so I basically just translated the cable work from the Must Have Cardigan onto the pattern for the unisex cable pullover and came up with this. And I used yarn from Stash that it's Kumara, and I believe the color is Grasshopper. So Kumara was a yarn by Classic Elite, and it's a mixture of camel and merino, so it's super soft and not at all itchy. I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt under this, so it's next to skin on my arms and doesn't bother me a bit. And yeah, it just turned out really well. It has the 1 inch of ribbing on the bottom. It doesn't flip though, so that's nice. And yeah, I really liked this pattern because it does little things like, so one of the things I'm always keen on is when you get a cable pattern where they take the time to figure out how to make the cables come up out of the ribbing like that. Love that. Always love that. Yeah, and I particularly liked doing this little kind of mock. It's not an actual cable because you don't need to use the cable needle for it, but it's a kind of mock mock sort of horseshoe cable almost up the front that I found really enjoyable and kind of want to incorporate. And then of course you've got sort of the regular kinds of, or the standard traditional kinds of cables. And yes, this sweater needs a bit of a gleaning, right? Because it's pilling a lot, but that's because it's well loved and well worn. And so I wanted to say that that's one of the things that I think that I enjoy also about this sweater, is because I kind of took a risk with it. It kind of was also made at an odd time in my life, so I actually worked on this sweater a lot while curled up with COVID back in 2020. So it has a lot of sort of emotional resonance in some ways. So I was not real, it was right as lockdown was happening and everything was shutting down, and it was like, what is the world coming to? What's going to be happening? And, I kind of took the risk and decided to pull some yarn out of stash and make something, unique for it, or sort of almost like a little Frankenstein sweater, right? So a piece of this pattern, like this pattern, concept merged with this pattern sizing and style and design, and then this, yarn from stash that's since been discontinued, and it turned into a sweater that I really enjoy and that I wear quite a bit. Okay, so that's it for today's episode of Making and Musing. Thank you again for watching. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. As I said, I think last I checked, I was at 83 subscribers, and my goal, it's a little bit of a stretch goal, but it's a goal, is to try to get to 100 subscribers by the end of March. So if you're so inclined, please help me out with that. And if you do help me out with that, thank you so much. I'll see you next week. Thank you again for watching. Bye.